Welcome to R&R Showtime with Robert.
And Ryan. And today is a special Oscars 2021 episode where we're going to rank the 8 nominated films for Best Picture because, I've been trying to watch all of the Best Picture nominees for the past few years. I think 2017, the whatever year Shape of Water one was the first year that I started watching all of the Best Picture nominees just to see what they were like. And I found myself happy that I've chosen to do this because sometimes some of my favorite movies of the year were movies that I probably wasn't going to watch had I not basically started doing this. So
yeah, Ryan suggested that we do this, and I was like, well, yeah, it sounds like a great thing to do for a podcast about movies and TV shows. So and I think just like he said there, I've never gone out of my way to watch all the Best Pictures. I probably watched like one or two each year, just as a matter of wanting to see them, despite them being Best Pictures. And this year I had to go out of my way to see them all. Having to spend $45 watching them literally on Amazon within the last 24 hours before we record this podcast to make sure I got them all in.
For the few that weren't for free on a streaming service, because about half of them are free if you have the streaming service, but some of them you gotta pay the money if you want to watch The Father.
Yeah.
Or Promising Young Woman.
Yes. Well, Promising Young Woman was only $5, but The Father and Minari were both 20. So
yeah.
So but hey, going into this, I want to say we are gonna give our rankings and we're gonna talk about these movies and possibly some of their downfalls and a lot of the good things that they do. But I would say I was pleasantly surprised that I liked all of these movies. I thought they were all good. They offered something different, each one of them, and they all, were enjoyable movie experiences for me. So I'm glad that, I put myself in the position to watch all these. And I think I'll start continuing to try and watch all of them from now on as well.
What I will say is that I agree with that. But what's notable about this year in particular is that I would say the one movie that I was least interested in watching, the movie that I was probably would have put at the bottom of my list to watch, was one of the movies I ended up liking the most. And that's why sometimes giving yourself the goal of watching all of them is helpful. Well, without further ado, let's get into those rankings. So we're gonna go back and forth and give our picks from 8th to 1st because there's 8 nominees, and these are going to be personal opinions. So
yeah, I would like to say that I do not think that ultimately my number one pick is what is going to get picked by the Academy. I actually have a separate list of what I think the Academy would rank these things in. But I'm just going based on kind of how I like them the best. So, but I think Ryan's going to take it off and he's going to start with his number 8.
All right. So at number 8, I have Mank. So, Mank is a movie. It's basically telling the writing process of Herman Mankiewicz writing the film Citizen Kane. And having seen the movie Citizen Kane, this movie is no Citizen Kane. It's a good movie. The things that I want to highlight as good about it are, I think Amanda Seyfried in her fairly small role is probably doing some of the best acting that I've seen her do. And she's not in it very much, but I think she does a great job. I love the aesthetic of it. I think they really capture that sort of 40s, 30s Hollywood style and look very well outside of it being black and white. And I think the music is good. It puts you in that time and place. And if I had to give my biggest reason why I don't have it higher is I think Gary Oldman's good in this role, but I feel like he may have been miscast because he's a 63-year-old playing a guy who's in his early 40s and in the flashbacks his 30s. So it makes you perceive the character differently than he should be perceived, because Gary Oldman looks considerably older than this character actually is, in my opinion.
I think that might have been purposeful though, because he's supposed to be an alcoholic, like a deep alcoholic, clearly, and that is supposed to kind of age you a little bit. But I can see why you might say that. My pick for number 8 is Sound of Metal.
Interesting. All right.
And again, as I kind of stated at the beginning of the podcast, I liked all these movies. Good things about this movie. I mean, I love their use of sound in this movie. Obviously, haha, Sound of Metal.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed their use of sound, or even their lack of use of sound. It gave an interesting perspective into sort of into basically being deaf, or having to deal with things without being able to hear, and the impact of noise overall to us, sound to us as people. So, however, I mean, the movie just did not in some ways appeal to me, right? As a storyline personally. And besides it appealing to me story wise, it didn't affect me emotionally very much. It didn't make me really feel very much for the character. And I don't want to make that any commentary on the performance, because I think it was performed pretty well. But there's just something about this movie that was, it just didn't get to me as much as some of the other movies. Some of the other movies really, moved me a little bit. So, I mean, that is why I would put it down in my 8th spot.
All right. So normally I would make a quick comment on your placement here, and then once we finish this, I would move on to my number 7. Actually, well, so you're going to give your number 7 next first, but okay. So spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about Sound of Metal pretty soon. So I sort of agree with what you have to say. And you can move on to your number 7, because I'm going to have more to say soon.
All right. So my number 7 is going to be Nomadland.
I expected you to have this fairly low.
Yeah. And the reason, so Nomadland is a very, I mean, it's kind of it's a powerful and interesting look into not only, some commentary on sort of the plight of the middle lower class a little bit, but this interesting dive into a person, an individual's life as they're sort of being on this not homeless but nomadic sort of lifestyle. And there's a lot of like big sort of beautiful ways that things are shot with these open landscapes, and it's an interesting and very close look into someone's life. But again, in just a personal way, this did not, again, and maybe it's just because I couldn't even necessarily say it did not connect with me as much as I would have hoped. I thought it was a big and nice movie, and there are so many good parts about it, but it just didn't, again, it didn't connect with me emotionally. It did not really move me quite as much. There were parts where I really did feel, in the movie, there's a person that ends up dying, and they sort of have their own, moment where they, have a treatise about death.
Yeah, it's basically a monologue. Yeah,
and that was a powerful thing, but that wasn't even our main actress.
Yeah,
but not, let alone that was a good portion of the movie, and I liked it. But it overall, the rest of the movie just didn't, it didn't fully connect with me. And yeah, so that's why it's got my 7th spot.
All right, I feel that. So real quick, I do want to know. I wanted to add in an additional frame of reference, another ranking. My best friend Salem gave me their ranking of these 8 movies, because they also went through and watched them. And you giving your number 7 reminded me to mention their number 8 was Nomadland. So you're not alone in having it ranked fairly lowly. It's not a movie I would recommend for everybody. That's for sure.
I would say the lead actress, though,
Frances McDormand.
I think she did a really excellent job in the role, though.
And she always does.
Yeah. So, yeah. No, what is your number 7, Ryan?
So my number 7 is Sound of Metal.
Okay.
Which I think I really went into that movie expecting to like it. Here's something I'm going to give as a caveat. I planned to try and watch as many of these movies in theater as I could. I had a ticket to watch Sound of Metal. I was in the theater for my showing of Sound of Metal, and they canceled it because they couldn't get it to work. And so I had to go home and watch it on Amazon Prime. And so I was not able to enjoy this movie in a theater setting where I could get this sort of sound quality that I think it deserves. And so I'm going to give that as a caveat. But that aside, the things that I want to highlight as good about this movie, I think Riz Ahmed gives a very good performance. I would not be upset if he won Best Actor for this. He's not my personal choice for Best Actor, but I wouldn't be upset about it. I think the sound design in general is very good. The way there's one scene in particular where you hear a person singing this song and it's very beautiful. And then you hear Riz Ahmed's character, how he's hearing the song like halfway through the song. And it sort of makes it painful to know how he's hearing this beautiful singing is not how it actually sounds. And so I felt that to be a very affecting moment. And I appreciate that it has real deaf people and it highlights the real strength of the deaf community. And the supporting actor, I can't remember his name right now, but he plays Joe, the leader of the deaf camp. He's an actor portraying this character, and I think he does a wonderful job in this movie as well. But it's kind of like what you were saying about it. There's just something about it that didn't grab me. I couldn't fully connect with his character, and it was just sort of depressing because I don't know. I just didn't get what it was meant to make me feel, other than to give me a perspective of deaf life. But I feel like it wasn't enough about that, and arguably it was also too much of the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I like as far as what it was trying to be about, there's the obvious thing about being deaf, but a powerful thing in the movie is that the supporting actor, can't remember his name, Joe, sort of is trying to teach him a concept, right? And I think it's really about acceptance and through acceptance, finding strength.
Yeah.
And through stillness also finding peace. And I think by the end of the movie, we see that the character sort of regrets a certain decision that he makes, in some degree, thinks that he wants one thing, but in the end, what would have really brought him greater peace was another.
And that's another thing. I feel like the decision that he makes just sort of made me feel like less, it sort of took me off of what the movie was doing at that point. Cause I think the whole middle section when he's with the deaf community, I think is probably the strongest part of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then he makes a decision, and then I kind of don't, a lot of the movie past that point just sort of loses me.
Yeah. I would also maybe say that as well, though.
I think it comes back at the end. I think it ends.
Mm-hmm.
It sticks the landing fairly well, but yeah, I had high hopes for this movie, and I think that may have led me to get too hopeful about it. And it's a good movie. It's a good movie.
Absolutely. Yeah. There are no bad movies on this list, in my opinion. But yeah, so I pretty much agree with what you're saying there. I just think I put it a little lower. There's some parts of its execution that lost me. And I would say that Nomadland, while it didn't connect with me, I don't think there's any part of it, as a movie that lost it. I just think that, what it was trying to deliver didn't connect with me as much. And that's kind of why I put it lower than Nomadland.
All right. So your 7's Nomadland, my 7 Sound of Metal. Mm-hmm. For reference, Salem has Promising Young Woman here.
Okay.
And once again, in the trend of me almost copying you, my number 6 is Nomadland. So I think I walked out of that movie recognizing how well it was crafted. And first of all, Frances McDormand, always great in anything she does. The real life people that are playing these characters in the movie, that are like in real life doing this, living this life. So
Nomadic
like
lifestyle.
yeah. So like you mentioned the Swanky character who dies in the movie. In real life, she doesn't have cancer, so that's something she actually makes up for the story. Uh, the monologue that she gives, and it's shot in a close-up way, I think is like a very powerful scene. It's a very good scene. And in general, these real life people just giving their stories, I think it's such a fascinating look at this lifestyle and the way that this movie is shot as well. It's a very pretty movie to just look at. Some of these landscapes of America are just nice to see, and she's walking around exploring, living this life. And I don't know, it's it's a movie I can't recommend to everyone, but I am happy I saw it, I will say.
Yeah, I sort pretty much, I think you put into words a little bit better how I felt about Nomadland as well.
Yeah. I mean, and quite frankly, I think we have probably a very similar level of opinion of this movie, is why we have it ranked fairly closely. But so your number 6?
Yeah, so my number 6 is Minari.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so story about a Korean family in the, I don't know if it's late or early 80s. Moving
80s.
to, during Reagan's presidency. That is our confirmation of time area. And moving to Arkansas to essentially start a farm. And there, again, this is a movie that I did not expect to even like that much. And once I watched it, I thought it was just a really interesting slice of life look into just this family, this man struggling to fulfill a dream and what he believes is how he can best take care of his family, and the struggle of his family, and these interesting conflicting factors, and how this family relates is so very real to me. It seems very genuine. Like the fact that it is a movie and obviously we're just watching actors, playing out a story, is, I don't know. It's, they did so well that I forgot that.
Yeah.
And I mean, now I will say that, like some of these other ones, I did not necessarily, I felt some of the emotional sort of parts here, but I didn't necessarily connect with them. And it's hard for me to connect because there's no part of this movie that I can connect with other than maybe something about living, like that. Yeah, there's just no aspect of this movie that I personally could connect with, but it was just so well done, I think. And that I just enjoyed it almost more. And this movie, now to say it like this, some of these Oscar movies, in some ways, they almost feel like they're trying to be artistic, if that makes sense. They try to do a lot. I mean, these are people that are directing movies, and these directors are artists, and they're trying to create art out of their movie and tell a story and a narrative and everything. And you kind of see that forced in some of the movies. And it doesn't necessarily take away, but this movie felt overall genuine. Like there are just shots that are beautiful, but they don't feel like they were put there to be artistic. And so that is why, I mean, it might seem like it's on the lower scale of these things here, but I think it's an excellent movie. The only reason it doesn't get it any higher is because it just did not evoke enough in me for it to stick with me.
I would argue that at this point in probably both of our lists at this point, it's not so much that these are any movie that we're talking about now. It's not that we didn't like a movie. It's that we liked 5 movies more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Minari is, it's definitely a movie that not everybody would go out to see. It's largely subtitled. There's quite a bit of them speaking in Korean throughout the movie. So I recognize that it is, once again, it's a Oscar type movie, but I think yeah, you're right. It has real, genuine, like family arcs in it. So at this, I'm just going to note Salem at this point. Put Trial of the Chicago 7 at number 6. So we can see variety across all 3 opinions. Yeah. We haven't even referenced Trial or Promising Young Woman in either of our lists yet. Mm-hmm. So, but You got your number 5?
Yeah. So my number 5 is going to be Mank.
All right.
And so my reasoning for putting Mank this high, and this is also another movie that I did not expect to be actually this high. I thought it would be pretty low. Now, some reference here is that I've never seen Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
I kind of vaguely know that there's some references at Rosebud, that's some kind of reference, but I do not know what that movie's even about. And don't really know anything about it. Now, watching Mank, there's a few things here that reason it basically made its way up higher is one, I have sort of an affinity for that time period.
I thought you would have it higher because of the whole AC
just the 1930s, 1940s sort of period. The costumes, everything about it just appeals to me. And that I'll say that right now, like if the movie was about some other period of time, probably would have been, the 8 spot. But because of that, it appealed to me a little more. But I also think that the way that this movie was presented, and now, again, I haven't seen Citizen Kane, but it makes me think that Citizen Kane is shot similar to this.
Yes.
Okay. And so I think that this being in references in Kane, not knowing that, but I got that right away. I was like, I'm pretty sure that this is shot just like how Citizen Kane is. And because they're doing that, it's such an interesting, analog to that movie.
Watching the movie, did you pick up on what Citizen Kane, the movie, is about?
So I mean, from what Mank sort of says in it, he almost explains what he, writes about in one scene.
Yeah.
Where he's talking about, I'm going to write my own version of Quixote about a newspaperman. And then we know from Malunchy's references that he is basing some of his characters on William Randolph Hearst and his wife. I believe it's got to be his wife, right? Or his mistress or something.
So the Amanda Seyfried character, that's the thing. There's a character in Citizen Kane that many people latched on to being that Amanda Seyfried's real life, Marianne Davies. Mm-hmm. They basically decided that character was based on her, but in reality isn't based on her. Like Mank based it off of another rich person's famous like mistress that he put into movies. Yeah. But people latched onto that idea and people got the impression that it was about her. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the controversy of him knowing her on a personal level. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sort of thing. But yeah, the Citizen Kane is largely about William Randolph Hearst.
Yeah. So, and the only thing I know about William Randolph Hearst is that he uses newspapers to, in like a cabal to basically like demonize marijuana in, the early 1900s because they were using hemp to.
And he has a big castle.
Yeah, he has a big castle. And Patty Hearst was involved in those killings. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I almost forgot to mention, I don't think either of us have brought up one of my favorite, like taking me out of the movie moments of the movie was seeing who they cast to be Upton Sinclair.
Who do they cast?
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Are you serious?
That was Upton Sinclair.
Oh,
you only see him in the one scene where he's like talking to people.
And it's like his back turned to us.
Yeah, but it's Bill Nye.
Wow, that is, I'm the kind of guy that doesn't stay to watch the credits most of the time, so I didn't notice that, but that is kind of funny. Very interesting. But I will say, so the fact that they were doing analog to Citizen Kane and how it's presented is already one thing, but the fact that I think that delivery in this movie was actually very good. I think this interesting flashback and flash forward thing that they do brings this narrative almost full circle, where at first, I'll say in the beginning of the movie, I almost thought to myself, I'm just going to have no idea what's going on. I've never seen Citizen Kane, right? And I was a little confused. It almost drops you in. And specifically right in the beginning, it's hilarious that they say, when he first starts writing the script and he's presenting it to, one of the producers or whoever, the houseman.
Yeah.
He says, Mank, I don't know if a general audience is going to be able to follow this flashing back, and forth narrative. And I'm like, wow, yeah, okay, I like this. Speaking about itself portion of the movie where they're using that same thing. So, I mean, there's a lot of like really fun, interesting ways that they made this movie. And the subject matter is interesting too. I think it's interesting to see this interaction between these Hollywood executives and how this, race was apparently rigged and all these things.
Yeah.
Not rigged, but, shifted.
I'll also say I think they casted the Orson Welles character pretty well. Like I bought that was he gave me the Orson Welles vibes.
Yeah. So, and I did mention this earlier, but to me, I genuinely thought that sometimes, okay, I think in media, we have like people being portrayed at different ages a lot of times, and it almost confuses like what an age looks like. And to say being, I'm going to be 29 soon, right? So I'm in my late 20s, but some people would assume that I'm younger than I am. And then I see other people that are like, I see literally people that are actors sometimes, and I'm like, how is that guy the same age as me? He looks younger. Or how is this guy younger than me? He looks like he's 35, right? So I just, maybe it was my want to just suspend my disbelief, but I accepted that he was supposedly his age, and I also let his alcoholism be a reason.
Here's the thing: did you accept that he was his age, or did you just assume that the character was around Gary Oldman's age? Did you just assume that this character was probably like late 50s, maybe 60 or something? What age would you have assumed this guy was?
I would have assumed he was a little older than he was supposedly supposed to be.
And I think that sort of changes some of the scenes of people telling him to not ruin his career by doing this. If this man's already like 50s, 60, then I mean, he's already had his career in his life. What's there really to lose? But think of it more as a man that's like 42. Like he's still should be trying to preserve his career in Hollywood. And for him to die 15 years later, spoiler, I guess, of real life, he's dying in his history. He's dying in his 50s, not dying like in old age.
Yeah. Oh, FYI, it's a little late for this, but there might be some spoilers ahead. We've been doing, I think, a pretty good job not to reveal any key plot points to anything so far.
Yeah.
But going ahead, that might end up being a thing. And in this movie, I did mention some things, but it's not a lot of spoilers per se. So,
all right. So
go ahead with your 5.
My number 5 is going to be the Trial of the Chicago 7. I am very happy I watched this movie in theaters. I thought it was so funny. I laughed out loud at several moments, particularly with the Abby Hoffman, Sacha Baron Cohen character, and the other Yippee character. Let me see. Did I write down that actor's name? Jeremy Strong. Yeah, no, wait. Yeah, I think Jeremy Strong is the actor I'm thinking of. I think they're very funny. I think in general, this movie, all of the court scenes, I'm like, is this real? And a lot of the things that are real, that judge really is was that awful of a judge in real life. I think the writing is pretty good in the movie. Again, that goes into the funniness of it all, and I think it's just a great ensemble cast in general. Yahya Abdul. I didn't write down his full name, but the Bobby Seale character I think is good. The little bit of Fred Hampton we get in this movie is interesting to see, especially with Judas and the Black Messiah. Having that perspective on the Fred Hampton character makes it interesting. I think this is a good movie. I
thought it was also interesting. To be frank, never knew who Fred Hampton was. Didn't know really much, about the Black Panther Party other than some bit, little bit of history that we get taught in history class. So to have seen Judas first before I saw the trial and then be like, oh, that's that guy. And then the event happened.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. The end of Judas and the Black Messiah coincides in the middle of this trial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I had this movie a little higher. I swapped it with my number 4, but I think it's because my number 4 I didn't get to watch in a theater. And if I had been able to watch my number 4 in the theater, then it would be at my number 4 spot. And so I thought that was a more fair place to put it. And so real quick, let me reference Salem's number 5, and then I'm going to go into my number 4, and Salem has Mank at number 5. So same placement as you.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. All right. So at my number 4, I have Judas and the Black Messiah.
That's very convenient because my number 4 is also Judas and the Black Messiah.
What a coinkydink.
Yeah.
So actually, you know what's funny? At number 4, Salem has Judas and the Black Messiah.
That is rather amusing. So let's get it out of the way to say that I think this movie, my opinion, gives us a look into something that I did not know a lot about, and I'm glad to have learned more about it and to understand more about the Black Panther Party and what they were. And it is no surprise that the government was, fucking them over, like, at all. And I think the actor for the Black Messiah, Fred Hampton,
Daniel Kaluuya,
very powerful. I don't think anybody would not agree that his performance was great there. So I have, those comments to say. Well, let's hear. You were supposed to start this off, so go ahead.
All right. So, so I think right off the bat, the things that I like most about this movie is some of the casting. I think Lakeith Stanfield, who plays the Judas character, and Daniel Kaluuya playing Fred Hampton, I think are both great. Both of them nominated for Best Supporting Actor, because in a movie titled Judas and the Black Messiah, who's the main character, Judas or the Black Messiah?
Right.
Neither, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what they decided. I think Lakeith could have been nominated for Best Actor. I don't know if he has good chances in either category, because I think Daniel Kaluuya's has a little bit more of a showy performance, though I personally would give my vote to Lakeith Stanfield. Of the two of them, I think he has a more nuanced performance as this character, this Judas character that we're supposed to, the fact that he gets me to almost root for this guy who I know is doing the wrong things. He's being selfish. It's I think he does a very good job at getting me to at least sympathize with this bad character.
Yeah, I think I really enjoy a movie. I mean, this is like more or less like a dramatization of historical events, but based on true events is what I have to assume. Like, I'm assuming that these are all, mostly true, but again, like perhaps dramatized in ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, to take someone who we are not supposed to like, I mean, he's supposed to be the Judas. Yeah. That is not a good role to be playing. But yeah, throughout this, you understand why he's doing these things and his conflict, really. You see his conflict in the things that he's doing. And to know that, later when at the end, once these things are revealed, historically, that man, ended up, taking, again, this may be a spoiler for the movie, but it's just a historical thing that happened. Like, that man ended up taking his life, because of having,
because of his guilt.
Yeah. Because of his guilt, having this story put out. So, so to say, why isn't this higher and why isn't it lower? One thing I would say though, is that a lot of these other movies.
Well, let's be clear. At this point, we're in our top 4. This is the higher half of the list.
Yeah. So it definitely takes a higher spot, because I think there's just, the performances of Fred Hampton and I can't remember what those guys. Bill. Yeah, their performances were stellar. What we were witnessing. The movie was put together very well. But one thing I think to myself, and sometimes I actually debated on making this lower a little bit, but
this was the last swap I made was between this and Trial, because I did not get to watch this film in a theater. And I think had I been able to watch it in a theater, I would have put it above the Trial.
Yeah. This movie could have been lower for me. It was just because this movie was just a movie. It was just a story that was told, and it was done very well by all the actors. But I think a lot of these other ones that are a little lower, the way that Mank was portrayed, the way that Minari, a lot of them are portraying this artistic feel. And that's what I just mentioned earlier. These Oscar movies often come in as being kind of pieces of narrative movie art. And a lot of the other ones display a lot more. And this one doesn't. I don't think this one goes out of the way to have special shots. It's just telling a story.
Here's the thing. I think it's no coincidence that this is also the only movie that of all of you, me, and Salem, we watched this movie independently of our own choice. We wanted to see this movie before Oscars had even been announced. Every other one of these Oscar nominated films I watched after they got the nomination. This is the only one that I sought out to watch on my own.
Yeah.
Because, I think it was advertised a little more than the other movies. The I Am a Revolutionary, that trailer I saw a lot. And it made me want to watch this movie. And I also want to give a shout out to, Jesse Plemons, who's the FBI agent, his Bill's handler through the movie. He's always good in anything. I actually think Dominique Fishback, who plays Fred Hampton's girlfriend, wife,
Yeah.
the mother of Fred Hampton Jr. I think she actually gives a very strong performance in this. In many key scenes, I think she does a really good job. I don't think I've seen her in anything before, but I think she's got potential to really stand out in future things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, is there any more that we can say here? This movie was good. Like it was just like well put together, and it delivered something. And I think the charisma of both of the leading actors is why this got put so high for me. I think overall it's just a well put together story, and it just followed a good flow and ended it, in a good way. That whereas some of the other movies might have missed certain beats or not quite, connected, I think it was almost easy to connect with the story and feel some of what was going on and feel a good finish. Like Sound of Metal kind of finished, but it almost lost us a little bit in certain ways. Mank, it's something that it was hard to connect with, even if I appealed to it a little more because of parts of it. Again, Minari, hard to connect with that exact story, even if I can connect with certain parts of the emotion that are there. This one, again, I think this was something that, much like Ryan said, we all wanted to see this despite anything, but I think most people would have wanted to see this.
Yeah.
This is a story that people wanted to see being told.
The one last thing I want to give about this movie is I think that there's probably going to be there's a lot of probably YouTube video essays to talk about this movie, because there's subtext to this movie of the sort of honestly, it's a surprise that Warner Brothers wanted to make this movie, because it's kind of a starkly anti-capitalist film, very pro-socialism in many ways. And I think they're interesting videos to watch on the deeper subtext of this movie. But that being said, I want to have you carry us on to number 3. And it's at this point that I realize that in our top 3, we're only going to have one movie difference. We're going to have 2 of the same movies in our top 3.
Yep. So my number 3, Trial of Chicago 7.
Interesting. Not my number 3. So go ahead.
Yeah. So The Trial, again, this is a movie where, like many of these movies, came into it, didn't really think I was going to necessarily like it or really even understand what it's about. And this movie was so very, this movie was made in a way that was so digestible for any person that watched it. And the fact that this is the one that's on Netflix for free, Mank is on there as well, but it's on Netflix. Any person that stumbled across this movie and watched it would get through it and feel the same feel the same kind of emotions that I did. I think everybody can get it. Some of these other movies, I think, maybe the emotions or the things are a little over, some people's head. Like if you're not there for, what is sometimes an artistic movie, it's hard to really fully grasp everything. And this movie is not that, but it does have powerful scenes and it communicates so many things effectively, and just has a lot of likable characters. Sacha Baron Cohen, they make it, funny, but also it illustrates this, again, what is essentially historical, mostly facts. Again, I don't know the absolute accuracy, but I think Ryan has
there's I don't know everything detailed either, but there's some things made up, like the female FBI agent. She's complete false, not existent. But some of the things in the movie are accurate.
Yeah.
Or like how Sacha Baron Cohen is playing 10 years older than he should be because the movie was supposed to be made in 2007.
Yeah. So, but the fact that, this paints this interesting historical event in a way that's so digestible for people, and through it, it was making me. It was evoking this emotion in me. There's a little bit of like outrage, like how could
it's a timely film. I didn't mention that before. The cops and everything, the rioters versus cop aspect of it all was certainly felt very modern. And you mentioned the writing of it being digestible. I think Aaron Sorkin in general is a writer that can both be artistic but also gets general audiences to feel things with his writing. I think he does a good job of that here.
Yeah. And I think that, this movie was just so well put together. And much like Judas, it was a story that was told. It starts, it ends, it comes to complete. But this also has a little bit of the flashing back, that sort of Mank did, but it was used very specifically. This one was, we're looking back at events, we're going forward, and it places everything right where it should be. So we're going back to an event, and it gives us reference to the next things that we're seeing, and they're all placed in the correct spots. So everything that's revealed as it's revealed comes in very well. And this whole movie, just by the end of it, I was just like, wow, like that was really good. And that was the fourth movie I'd watched, so I think I'd watched it after Judas, after Sound of Metal, and after No Man Land. So that was one where I felt really, good about having watched it at the end. So yeah, that's why, that's for the most part, that's why it takes my number 3.
I can't begrudge that. My number 3 is Promising Young Woman. So real quick, other than Judas and the Black Messiah, I would say that, and I guess Trial of the Chicago 7 to a certain extent, because it's a Netflix movie, I feel like Promising Young Woman's probably the most easily digestible to a wide audience film on this list, while also being a very important movie. It's a very Me Too era movie. So get those caveats out of the way. Honestly, I think this movie works so well. One, because I think it's well written, but two, because Carey Mulligan just sort of delivers such a strong performance in this role. She makes you okay following her character throughout this whole movie. For those who don't know the general plot of this movie, she's basically playing this woman who pretends to be drunk at bars so that guys will take her home and try to take advantage of her so that she can basically reveal that she's not drunk and basically call them out on their toxic bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think she's very good in it. It's just one of those movies that you can just sit and watch, and like you just sort of just let the movie go by and you're just enjoying it the whole time. I also want to highlight, I think Laverne Cox has a small role in this movie, but I think she's nice to see. Bo Burnham, and in general, they cast a bunch of well-liked, affable, adorable sort of actors to play these sort of sketchy guys. Bo Burnham plays her love interest in the movie, who, if you know who Bo Burnham is and you already kind of like the guy, he's just so easy to like in this movie. And there's a certain turn to his character, which I'm not going to give away, but you can sort of guess that something's going to happen, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the turn itself, I think he does such a good job getting you to like him that the turn is made a little, and when you cast all these likable guys to play these scummy dudes, I just want to say one of the other things about this movie is a lot of times in movies, film critics talk about the male gaze and that films are shot from a male perspective. This is a movie that from the very beginning of it, I felt, okay, this is not a male perspective. This is not how a male looks at the world. This is a female perspective. And it very much gives you that through the whole movie. And I think there's a lot of good things about this movie.
I would totally agree. So
yeah,
I'll have more to say on it later, though. But everything you said I'm just in a total accord with that. So
all right. So
did we mention Salem's picks for the last movie and our
number 4 was Judas and the Black Messiah?
Okay, right. Yeah, we had the same one.
And then number 3, Sound of Metal. See, so that's the sort of that's sort of what I expected to feel about Sound of Metal going into this. And going forward, me and Salem actually have the same number 2 and number 1. So just as reference, we have the same number 2 and number 1. So I'm going to go into my number 2. And so I also want to preface this. My number 2 and my number 1, practically interchangeable. I think I like these movies an equal amount. I'm putting my number 1 higher because I think I'm putting my number 1 at number 1 mostly because of these two. I think number 1 is more likely to get a Best Picture recognition, but I practically like these movies an equal amount. My number 2 is The Father.
Mine is as well.
It's such a good movie.
Oh my God. It's so incredibly powerful. It's shot in such a interesting. I mean, this movie, if you don't understand, it's essentially about a daughter and her elderly father's relationship, and really him dealing with dementia, Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And it is just shot in this way that, again, we talk about how some of the other movies I can't connect with it. I don't know what it's like to feel that, but I did connect with it. And it's shot in a way where I was feeling very emotional. By the end of this movie, it was pulling out of me this pity, this confusion. Like, I felt confused at this movie, but that was the purpose, I feel. The director did such a good job at making me confused, but also illustrating, if you feel confused, think about how some people like this man have to live.
Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, Anthony Hopkins. God, best. I mean, is he even nominated for Best Actor? Because it's going to be hard to say he's not the winner. So
yeah, I think the only reason that he will not win the award, and I have a feeling he probably won't take it. The only reason he won't is because he's won it before. But God, this is maybe one of the best performances of his career, at least that I've seen.
Yeah, it is just stellar. It is something else, and I would like to echo that my number 2, number 1 spots, I feel basically the same. They're almost interchangeable. These movies are so good. I went into making this list and I was like, this is going to be difficult. I knew that some of them would be a little lower, and I actually broke it up for myself into 1s, 2s, and 3s of the tiers. And there was really only 2 movies for me personally that were the number 1s.
Yeah.
And it was this movie. And I will also say this. I watched this movie directly before we did this podcast. So maybe you could say, oh, it's because it's so recent, but I know it was truly just powerful.
I walked out of The Father and I was like, damn, is this my number 1? Because I had already seen my number 1 pick at that point, and I was like, it's one of these 2. And I think that's another reason why I put it at number 2. I was like, maybe it's a bit recent, because I only watched The Father on this Wednesday. Today is Sunday. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to feel like there's a recency to it as well. But you know what? It's so good. Olivia Colman plays his daughter in it, and she gives such a subtle performance. Mm-hmm. And I mean, she recently won Best Actress, and if I didn't agree with her winning Best Actress for that movie, The Favorite, she 100% is a standout in this film. I wouldn't give her the supporting actress win because of my number 1 pick for Best Picture. That's gonna be my pick for supporting actress there. But she's so good in it. They're both so good in it. It's so well, the direction of it, just how uncomfortable and like disorienting. I walked out of the movie theater and I felt disoriented.
Yeah, I didn't just feel disoriented, but I felt this. Like, I feel like I really got this look into another. I mean, a lot of these movies give you that sort of perspective where you can look into some other kind of thing that you don't understand, another part of life that you haven't experienced. But man, if you've ever looked at dementia and Alzheimer's and just seen like, wow, that's really sad. Like now, oh man, it literally this movie made me think, what an absolute hell. What an absolute hell. Like, this is not even like, if this is even anything like what it's actually like, I can't even imagine living like this. It made me feel it made me pity and feel so, just so much almost sadness and so much emotion. It was, I mean,
I'm a young person, but it's not difficult to put yourself in the position of, I'm going to be that age someday. Mm-hmm. And you know what? That's scary.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what you get in his performance. You get the fear in his eyes mm-hmm. sometimes when he doesn't remember things precisely. Mm-hmm. You can just look at him and know, and just recognize this like little hint of fear and confusion. Mm-hmm. And then he just like tries to wave it off like, mm-hmm. oh no, that's not, it's okay. But
yeah, but it's not, and not just fear, but also anger. There's like, and also justified. You see other people reacting to what he's doing and how he's feeling.
And it's frustrating for them, but it's even more frustrating for him.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives you a new perspective. I mean, and to say this, our grandfather is also sort of starting to go that path from what we understand, from what it's not something I very much experienced when I, had last seen him and when he was around. But
I haven't seen him in a while.
I have heard more and more about these things, about how he'll, talk to our mother on the phone, and or our aunts, and not know which daughter he's talking to or what they're talking about. And I mean, I really did, while I was watching this movie, just sit there and think like, wow, is this even a part of what he's starting to experience? Like, it just made, it made me truly sympathize for people that might have to deal with even a fraction of this, or entirely like this. And just the movie, the way it's shot portrays it. It's all about how it's directed as well. Like, you could have made a movie like this, but without that actor, without this set, the way they use the set, without the way that it's shot. I mean, this all puts it together perfectly. I don't know if you could have made a better movie about this.
I think it helps that this film was directed by the same person who wrote the play that it was adapted from. So I think this guy, and I actually watched an interview where he basically said that the role was sort of written with Anthony Hopkins in mind, because in the director's opinion, Anthony Hopkins was the greatest living actor. And I think this movie kind of justifies that belief that he's the greatest living actor.
Yeah, no, it's stellar. I mean, honestly, and again, this is another one where before I watched it, I was like, oh, this was
literally the last one I would have picked to watch on my own.
Yeah, but I mean, I was like, oh, Anthony Hopkins, he's really good in everything. I mean, he's such a good actor. This will probably be, fine. But coming out of it was just like, wow, that was one of the moments where I was like, I'm so glad that I watched all these movies now.
Exactly.
All these movies were amazing and powerful and so worth the watch. And I would literally certainly recommend anybody go watch The Father.
The Father, 100%. I hope many people go and see
if you want to feel things, like if you want to, but it's not good things, but it's an experience.
So I watch this YouTube channel. They do the honest trailers for things, and every year they do an honest trailer of all the nominations for Best Picture, and every year they sort of pick the movie that nobody really watched, and The Father was the movie that they put as, well, you didn't see this movie, so blah blah blah. And I agree with that sentiment. Like, yeah, had I not made a point to watch all of these movies, this would have probably been the movie that I skipped, and like, oh, I know what this movie is about. It's Anthony Hopkins. He's playing like a dementia dude. I'm sure it'll be powerful or whatever, but no, it's so much better. It's so much better than I expected it to be.
Yeah. The summary of this movie tells you nothing about this movie. So that is the thing is, I've read the little summary of all these movies, but you can't think that you know what this movie is just by reading its little, the little paragraph that they give you before you start watching it or when you're looking at reviews. Yeah, this one is this is a fantastic movie, and again, would exchange it with my number one as well. Yeah, but we digress. Into our number ones, Ryan.
Well, you're actually first.
Oh, is it me that digs it? Okay, all right. So my number one, Promising Young Woman.
I'll be honest, I did not expect you to pick this for your number one.
I thought it was controversial too, right? I thought I knew that I didn't think Ryan was going to think that I would pick this, right? And I have to say, oh man, Promising Young Woman, right? This is okay. The Father, probably a movie I wouldn't have watched, but Promising Young Woman, I thought this would have been my lowest one. I thought it was going to be number 8, just going into it, because I was like, oh, this is some movie about women. I'm not going to connect with it or something. Yada yada, right? And that was a truthful initial thought. But I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to watch it though, anyways. And this movie hit so many interesting points for me. Now, I've said before, I can't on things. I couldn't connect with things emotionally or something like that, because I couldn't see myself in this. Again, even though I'm not a female, I felt so much of what was being portrayed in this, the emotion, the disgust. Like, that was a feeling that arose in me multiple times where I was looking at these situations, and being a man was just like ashamed. And I'm like ashamed that there are men that act like this. And even also doing a little introspection, like, have I been like this before?
Yeah.
Making me really take a look at myself and like hoping that this is not something I've ever made a woman feel like or done. The movie also, I mean, again, Carey Mulligan, amazing actress, really just carrying this movie, this powerful, everything that Ryan said earlier. I just, want to reiterate. I mean, if you want to go back and listen to what he said, I just agree with all of it. But added to this movie, it does a thing that I really love in movies in general, which is where it grips me by giving me some information, but not enough, and then just slowly revealing things. And it keeps me really wanting to know more. I like mysteries. I like putting things together.
Yeah.
And I had it commented that this movie, you could kind of see where it was going. You could, obviously, right? But and yes, there's a part of me that kind of didn't know the direction we were going in, and I understood, how things were going to end up. But still, getting the piece of it, I kept wanting to put little things together, and the more and more it went on, the more and more it was leading up to it, and it came to this point of what I call the emotional denouement of the movie, and it was such a jaw-dropping moment for me. And now I will say there's just one little criticism, is that I almost think that this movie could have been more powerful if they had just let it basically end right there with that.
Yeah, I've heard that criticism before, but I feel like it could have been a bit too much.
It might have been a little bit too much. It might have given a little bit because that.
I think from what I heard, I think that was an original. I think it was originally written with that ending.
Yeah, and it feels like the movie could have ended basically right there, and it would have just left you with this feeling of true, if I felt a little bit of outrage with the trial of Chicago 7, this one have made me seething, acidic, caustic, just disgust. Seriously, that I remember thinking those words in my head. I was like, I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted at these things right now. And again, for a man, getting to see that perspective, I think it was so necessary. It was so powerful. I appreciated having, being given that. So that it almost challenges me to be a better person, and just the way that it was done. Oh, and also I like that this movie, there's some cinematography things about it. When they definitely go either way. This is one of those Oscar-ish movies where they take moments to just give you these artistic shots, multiple of them.
See, I actually don't I get that it has shots like that, but I actually don't feel like this movie is catered to an Oscars audience. I think it's catered to a general audience.
Yeah, see, I'm not saying that it is, but it definitely has a lot of very artistic, purposefully, this scene is literally put here just because it looks artistic, but I don't begrudge it. I actually like them. I think they're all they look cool and interesting. There's a specific scene I keep having in my head of where it just shows her head over this sort of this fixture on the wall. Yeah. And her head is squared into it with a yellow background, the blue fixture, and her face is there. There's another point where the camera's centered directly on her and she's sitting on a couch. And it's just this movie is also full of so much color, but the subtext of this movie is so dark. And that is such a juxtaposition that the movie is so colorful and you associate that with good, bright, happy fun, when everything about this movie is not happy, bright, fun. Yeah. I mean, it is a dim, serious,
there is fun. It's a funny movie at times. I mean, Bo Burnham's character in particular, there's a very fun montage scene set to us, a wonderful song, Stars Are Blind by Paris Hilton. And I think it's one of those scenes where it's oh, wow, it feels so good in the moment, but you know what's coming.
Yeah. And again, I think it is surprising that I ended up feeling this way too. But I remember after watching that movie, I was like, I think this is going to be my number one. And I kept watching the movies, and The Father was the only one where, again, when I went through this list, I put them all sort of in rankings. I was like, Father and Promising Young Woman. And there was just, again, the depth of emotion that this movie made me feel, the actual disgust sat with me. It sat with me so much, to the point where I feel like I learned something and can try to be a better person for having watched this movie a little bit. As a man, I feel like I can be better for having had this perspective, from women. And it addresses a point that is just so necessary. I think it's great that this movie was, made and is out there and that it can, be said. So
I think that, and this is another movie where I think you can find quite a few strong video essays on YouTube basically dissecting this movie more, and it'll only sort of make you like it more, in my opinion. Yep. So getting into my number one, I don't know if you can do the math in your head of what I have left, but my number one is Minari.
Yeah, and that is also very surprising to me too. I was like, wow, okay. I really want to hear, about why you felt that way.
So first of all, I think the entire sort of ensemble cast in this movie is very good. Weirdly enough, Steven Yeun, I think he has a nomination for Best Actor. I actually wouldn't peg him as one of the stronger performances in the movie. I'd say the two strongest, in my opinion, belong to Alan Kim, who plays the son, David, and let me get the pronunciation. Yoon Ya-chung, who plays the grandmother in this movie, who is nominated for Best Supporting Actress and should win that award, quite frankly. They have this wonderful, rich dynamic of this basically the kooky grandma character that just sort of gets introduced at some point in the movie and shakes things up. But so Minari, as you said earlier, is basically about this Korean family moving to the Midwest to start a farm. And that's one of the, you talk about how Promising Young Woman gave you a perspective that you didn't have before. That's what I got from this movie. Like and it's not just the immigrant perspective or the farming perspective, but it's all of it and more. What all the characters in this movie, like even the daughter, who I don't feel like gets a lot of attention, does a good job, like makes you believe that this is like a real, like she's this real person. They all feel like real characters.
100%.
Yeah, like, and that's the sort of acting that feels like it's easy because they're just being themselves. No, these are actors doing capital A acting. And it's just such a fascinating movie to watch. I didn't, for the longest time watching the movie, I didn't know what it was leading up to or what was going to happen. And there is this thing that happens towards the very end of the movie that when it was happening, first of all, so I mentioned before, me and Salem have the same number one. We both have Minari at the top of our list. And for both of us, there is a scene that happens towards the very end that's a little I almost want to say triggering of something that happens to this family that is in the moment seems like quite devastating to watch happen. And so as I was watching this scene, I was like uncomfortable. Like I was in my seat at the movie theater, like just like sort of like just like I didn't want to watch what was happening. I didn't want to think about what was going to happen there. But the sort of resolution to it just made me feel so good. Like I walked out of that movie and it was like maybe the third of these movies that I saw. And I was like, I think this might be my pick for Best Picture. I just have it's just so good. The Mountain Dew of it all. It's another one where it's like, it's not laugh out loud funny, but there's like so many things in it that are just like casually funny and just like likable about this movie.
Yeah, they're charming and like again, just in a genuine way. That was my biggest thing I liked about this movie, is that it just felt so genuine to like this was really just these people living, and it was excellent to get to see into that. I mean, I because this movie did surprise me, I don't think it's crazy that you picked it as number one. It does surprise me though, but I mean, yeah,
again, interchangeable with The Father, more or less.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and now that we have all of our personal picks, I go back to saying that I don't think that Promising Young Woman is going to win the Best Picture.
It won't. It won't.
And I don't really think Minari will either.
Of the two, I'd say Minari is more likely. I don't see the Academy. This is a very wonky thing to say. I don't see the Academy giving it to the Korean movie 2 years in a row. And so, what do you think? What do you think will be Best Picture?
I mean, you mentioned that they wouldn't want to do it twice, like give it to him again, but I think it's going to be The Father. I mean, I think I actually did make like if I could run through it, I made a list of what I think would be the actual rankings if the Academy ranked them. And this might be, this could be totally off base, but these are my picks in order. So starting at 8, I think Minari would be their 8. I think Sound of Metal would be their 7. I think The Trial would be number 6. I think Promising Young Woman would be number 5. I think Mank would be number 4. I think Judas and Black Messiah would be number 3. I think No Island would be number 2, and I think The Father would be number 1.
So it's interesting. I imagine that I have a better sense of what the Academy may typically go for. I can tell you that The Father is not gonna be Best Picture, like 100%.
You think so?
That's probably the only one that I could guarantee would not. I would say, like, before I sort of heard the commentary of what was most likely to win, I probably would have said that it was a battle between Nomadland, Mank, and maybe Trial, maybe Judas in the Black Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say it's probably, I think it's going to be Nomadland. And then I listened to some Oscar prediction stuff, and Nomadland is the favorite to win.
Yeah.
I left that movie and I was like, I think that's going to win Best Picture.
That was my impression. It's still, watching all these movies, it's pretty much been my impression that Nomadland was probably going to win as well. But okay, and this maybe is because it does. I thought The Father was so powerful, so much more like interesting as a movie. I was like, well, this is so much better than Nomadland. But this might be because I don't really watch the Oscars. I've never really watched them before. And your perspective and understanding kind of what they pick. Why do you say that, or why is it clear that The Father wouldn't win?
Well, so a multitude of things. I think it's one. I don't think it's one that a lot of people are going to see. Mm-hmm. So Academy voters in general don't watch every movie. They're just like, they're people like us. Like, they work in the movies, but they're not getting around to watching everything. As particularly this year, they're probably going to watch the movies that they hear the buzz around. And so I don't think as many people are going to have watched The Father to vote for it. Also, I think we're like in a era where the Oscars voters, like, whether, like, I think a certain level of them are going to try and vote for movies that they think will have some level of impact for voting for them. Mm-hmm. And voting for the movie with two white leads with a white director isn't going to make the Academy feel like they're patting themselves on the back in the way that they want to.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So they're probably going to be like, let's pick the one that makes us all look good, social justice wise or something.
Kinda. Mm-hmm. That's part of it, which is not something that they frequently do. I mean, just 2 years ago, they gave it to Green Book, but I think they're still getting criticized about Green Book winning. And I think they're going to do some, they're going to want to make a choice more along with Parasite. If they made a Parasite choice this year, I think they would pick Sound of Metal. But if they made a traditional choice, I think it would be Nomadland.
Interesting. And what's a Parasite choice? Well, could you help me understand that better? I mean, so this is for me and for anybody else that's not like an Oscar watcher, so we can.
So, did you watch the movie Parasite?
I did not, actually. I never got around to it, but I kind of wanted to. I'd wanted to watch it before the Oscars, before it got Best Picture, and I still kind of wanted to. It's like
basically.
Like most of these pictures, I just didn't make the time to go watch that movie.
Basically, it's a movie that it's a foreign movie. It's like was made fully set in Korea by a Korean director, fully in Korean. It's not American in any way. It's a movie that typically wouldn't even be considered in the Best Picture category because, like, in prior years, they would have just put it into the foreign language category. And when a movie gets into the foreign language category, it's less likely to be given the Best Picture thing because it's seen as not the typical choice. Like, the obvious choice for Best Picture was going to be 1917. That would have been the traditional choice. And in my opinion, that was my favorite movie that year. I also liked Parasite, though. And there was a lot of people who did not expect Parasite to win, despite many people strongly believing it was the Best Picture. And it took it, and it made a lot of people happy. But it was a surprising choice. And it's a question of whether or not they're going to keep up surprising people, or if they're going to continue to vote, or if they're going to vote for this more traditional Oscar pick, which would be Nomadland.
How do you think, like, coming out of 2020 and everything's going to affect? I mean, do you think that more people watch because more people?
I think less people than ever have watched these movies.
Really?
Yeah.
I know that seems interesting since it was we were all put in the house more, and I feel like a thing for a lot of people to do is to watch movies to pass the time. But I don't know. That's interesting.
I mean,
So I think your perspective is probably more accurate, to be honest.
I mean, for where is it? I'm trying to pull up last year's winners and nominees, so let me vamp a little bit. For reference, the movies nominated for Best Picture last year are Parasite, Ford v Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story 1917, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, I watched all those movies.
Yeah, so those are all, a lot of those movies were pretty accessible movies. Like the more artsy movies were Parasite and like,
I watched all of them except for Parasite, actually.
Yeah. Parasite's probably one of the more artsy ones, but you got movies like Joker in there. That movie made $1 billion. And like the previous year, I think was when Black Panther got nominated or Get Out got nominated. Like in recent years, I think Oscars have been returning to having movies that people have seen nominated for Best Picture. I mean, Avatar has been nominated for Best Picture. Toy Story 3 was nominated for Best Picture. Typically, there is usually a movie that many people saw in the nominations, and this year that movie is like Judas and the Black Messiah is probably, or Trial of the Chicago 7 because it was on Netflix.
Yeah,
these are the movies that people saw, but how many people actually saw them?
Yeah, Trial of the Chicago 7 was actually put on multiple times. I opened Netflix, was on the front page.
Yeah.
So
how many people clicked into it?
You are correct. I think there was enough because it was front page, and there's enough people that just sit there and watch Netflix so much that they would just go, "Oh, let's get that one to try." I think it got a good more. Mank, I never saw that. I had to type in MAN to even have it pop up for me.
Yeah.
So that's one that certainly did need to get searched for. The one thing I thought why it might get nominated or why it's really in the runnings is just that it's a movie about movie makers and a movie.
Yeah, I think a couple years ago Mank would have been the pick. I sincerely hope that it's not, because it was my least favorite, like that, but that's just me.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it deserves to win Best Picture though, even if I enjoyed it.
So while we're talking about it, let's go through some of the other categories.
Yeah.
Best Director.
And before we get into this a little bit, I haven't even seen necessarily all the movies. I don't know if Ryan's seen all the movies.
I haven't, but I've seen more than you have. Like in the Best Director category, there's one that I haven't seen.
Yeah, I'll keep it short, and I'm just gonna pick out my favorite. Based on whatever.
I'm gonna pick my favorite. I'm gonna pick the one that I think would win. Best Director: Thomas Vinterberg, Another Round; David Fincher, Mank; Lee Isaac Chung, Minari; Chloe Zhao, Nomadland; and Emerald Fennell for Promising Young Woman.
Okay, didn't see Another Round, so
sorry, I didn't see that. Yeah,
sorry that we can't have that one even a part of our choices. But I'm gonna say either director for Mank. Was Mank one of those?
David Fincher for Mank.
David Fincher for Mank or Promising Young Woman. Just because I think they were shot, and the directing of those movies I think was very well done.
If I had my choice of who would win, I would probably give it to. Honestly, I would give it to the one who I think is going to win, Chloe Zhao for Nomadland. Say what you will about the movie, I think it is very impeccably directed.
Yeah. No, yeah. I would say that, but those are just my personal choices.
And I think Chloe Zhao is the favorite to win. Best Actor, we have Riz Ahmed for Sound of Metal, Chadwick Boseman for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Anthony Hopkins for The Father, Gary Oldman for Mank, and Stephen Yeun for Minari.
Anthony Hopkins for The Father is my personal pick.
Just
to say though, I saw Chadwick Boseman and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I thought that was amazing. I thought he was definitely very good in that one. I would put it,
but I'm pretty much tied between Chadwick and Anthony Hopkins. I think either of I would be happy with either of them. I'd be happy with Riz Ahmed. He wouldn't be my choice. He'd probably be like my third choice. I think Chadwick's going to take it.
Yeah.
Because it's their last chance to honor him. Well, and that's not the only reason, but
I think
Anthony Hopkins has the award already. Riz Ahmed has the potential to win it in the future. And this is their last chance to honor this man's career.
And just because of that, and not to say like you should pick him because of that. But
it's not belittling it. It is a performance deserving of it.
100%. Like I, if it wasn't Anthony Hopkins, I think it would be Chadwick of all those choices.
All right. Best actress, we have Viola Davis for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Andra Day for the United States versus Billie Holiday, Vanessa Kirby, Pieces of a Woman, which I have not seen, Frances McDormand for Nomadland, and Carey Mulligan for Promising Young Woman.
Man, this is actually kind of tough. I don't, Viola Davis, I think she was good in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, but I don't think she had to take that.
No.
I think Carey Mulligan, honestly, it was. No, I gotta say it's Carey Mulligan. Even though Frances McDormand, yeah, she's amazing. She's amazing in everything I've ever seen her in. But Carey Mulligan really just, sent Promising Young One for me.
I've seen Frances McDormand. She was good in Nomadland, but she's given better performances. I want to give it to Andra Day because the thing that I think worked best about United States versus Billie Holiday was her as Billie Holiday, because I just kind of lost that this was an actress. It just kind of felt my idea of this person. She basically embodied it.
Yeah, I did not see that. So if I had seen that, maybe my opinion might be different. I also didn't see one of those other movies you mentioned.
Yeah, Pieces of a Woman.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Carey Mulligan, though, is the favorite to win, and I think she should win too. I think it's between the two of them for me. But I think I'd be happy with either of them winning.
Mm-hmm.
Best Supporting Actor, Sacha Baron Cohen for The Trial of the Chicago 7, Daniel Kaluuya for Judas and the Black Messiah, Leslie Odom Jr. for One Night in Miami, Paul Raci for Sound of Metal, and Lakeith Stanfield, Judas and the Black Messiah.
Remind me who Leslie Odom Jr. plays.
Sam Cooke, the singer.
Okay. I actually thought that was a good movie. Thought all the actors did a pretty decent job.
He wouldn't have been my pick.
Yeah, I wouldn't have picked him.
I would have gone with the Malcolm X character.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly why. He did a decent job portraying, and this is for someone who's not like I, have a great perspective on exactly how any of those people would have acted, but they all did a pretty fair job.
He sounds like Leslie Odom Jr., but he also kind of sounds like Sam Cooke. But yeah, he wouldn't have been my choice in that movie, to be honest.
I'm brought to wanting to pick probably like Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah, I think he's the favorite to win. Again, I personally thought Lakeith Stanfield did a better job in the movie, but I am not upset with Daniel Kaluuya winning for this.
Yeah, either one of them I think would be both deserving.
Paul Raci in Sound of Metal also did a good job.
Okay, I will actually say this. You giving me the perspective that he's not deaf, that actually makes his performance a little elevated to me. So I want to give him a little more credit as well. I still don't think he's my pick, but
yeah, the Fred Hampton character alone, Best Supporting Actress, Maria Bakalova, Borat subsequent movie film, Glenn Close for Hillbilly Elegy, which I did not see, but you have.
But I did, yes.
As Bonnie Mama Vance, Olivia Colman, The Father, Amanda Seyfried for Mank, and Yoon Yu Chung for Minari.
I'm gonna say it's either between Glenn Close or Yoon Yu Chun, because they were both. You didn't see Hillbilly Elegy, but I think that the mama on that is she's pretty stellar. If you like the grandma in Minari, I think you would think that the mama in Hillbilly Elegy was pretty excellent too. Also, I didn't realize that was Glenn Close. Which is funny that you say that. And now I'm like, wait, what?
So here's a category where, once again, I don't think Glenn Close is going to get her Oscar. She's been nominated many times, but hasn't gotten it. I think it's Yoon Yu Chung's award to lose. I haven't seen Hillbilly Elegy. Honestly, this is a category where I could be happy with any of them winning. I thought Olivia Colman was excellent in The Father. Amanda Seyfried, to me, was the standout in Mank. And Maria Bakalova in Borat's subsequent movie film. Again, she sort of was a highlight of that movie.
Didn't see that movie.
Okay.
Didn't see Borat's subsequent movie film. So.
Okay. But yeah, so it's a Yoon Yu Chung's award to lose. Best Original Screenplay, Judas and the Black Messiah, Minari, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, or The Trial of Chicago 7. This is basically writing award, which...
Oh, so writing-wise?
Judas, Minari, Promising, Sound of Metal, Trial.
So it's not going to be Sound of Metal. It's not going to be Trial for me. It's probably not going to be Judas. Writing wise, I don't know if the writing in all those is amazing. Promising Young Women, maybe, but like I don't know if the writing is really what stands out there. What are my other options? Since I'm like knocking them out.
You left Minari and Promising Young Woman, so I think you would give it to Promising Young Woman.
You know,
well, I'll tell you right now, that would be my pick, and I think that's the conventional wisdom.
Yeah, that's pretty much where it's at. But I actually have to say that Minari comes, you know,
this is one of those Oscar technical things where people are not going to vote Promising Young Woman for Best Picture, but they're going to give it Screenplay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's going to make, so we give them that award so we don't have to feel bad that we didn't give them Best Picture.
Right. Yeah.
And then in a similar vein, we have Best Adapted Screenplay. And that's for Borat's subsequent movie film, The Father, Nomadland, One Night in Miami, and The White Tiger. And
didn't see White Tiger.
I haven't seen that either.
The Father. I mean, if they're not going to give The Father to Best Picture, like,
yeah, I think The Father will like take like editing or something.
Best editing. Okay, yeah, if that's a category. Didn't know that's category. Then that, yeah, Father.
We're not going to go into the more technical categories, but like I think The Father is going to get like editing. Sound of Metal is going to get all of its award and sound design and stuff.
Definitely. That's the biggest thing about Sound of Metal is that the sound they do that amazingly.
Adapted Screenplay though, this one it's a little bit more of a shot in the dark for me. Maybe One Night in Miami, maybe Nomadland. I don't know. That one's a little more of a guess to me. We can go on to other ones, but we're getting more into movies that we haven't seen, like Best Animated Feature Film. We've seen the 2 Pixar movies, Soul and Onward, but there's 3 other movies that I don't know if you've seen: Over the Moon, a Shaun the Sheep movie, Farmageddon, and Wolfwalkers.
Well, if I had to pick between those 2, it's Onward. So.
I would pick Onward. Soul's the one that's going to win.
Yeah, stupid bullshit. I like that movie.
Soul's going to win that.
It wasn't terrible. It wasn't like the best.
Soul's going to win Best Animated, and then it's also probably going to win Best Original Score. And then, yeah.
Yeah. And are we just getting into technical ones now? They get a little beyond
the technical ones we can avoid, like their costuming and stuff like that. But let's wrap it up.
Yeah. So, I mean, Oscars, I'm really glad that we went through this and watched all these best pictures. Exposed me to some movies that I might not have previously, and glad we did this.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed this.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I guess that's pretty much it then. So until next time, this has been Robert.
And Ryan.
Thanks for listening, folks. Have a good one.
Yep.